I am a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life.
We are back in the Gentleman's Dojo.
Stronger than ever. Ripped. Angry. Ready.
I'm tearing my shirt off right now.
Ah, man.
I don't know.
I'm taking you to the mat, brother. You're going down.
I don't know if I'm thinking of him walking down the aisle into the ring or his sex tape. I'm trying to think which one I masturbated to more.
Oh, what happened, Hulkster? What happened, Hulkster?
By the way, Real American, written by Rick Derringer. Which song was better, seeing Hogan go down the aisle to the ring to? That one or Eye of the Tiger? Two big
this
songs.
one.
No.
No, Eye of the Tiger is Rocky, dude. That's his song.
Let's let our guest decide.
Is he on the phone?
Yeah, he's on the phone. Our guest today, I can't believe this is the first time we're having him on, because we love this guy.
Literally, can I intro? Or
of course.
You let's tag team intro.
Go
let's
ahead.
British Bulldogs this.
Let's do
okay,
it.
you start it off, and I'll bring it home.
Which British Bulldog are you? I'm Davey Boy Smith.
I'm the other one.
Dynamite Kid.
Yeah,
There you go.
I'm the other one. Go ahead, you kick it off. You kick it off, and then
first of all,
I got something special.
He has a podcast right here on this network on
I've
the
heard of
ATC.
it. I've heard of it.
It's called Good Times.
I've been a guest.
I think it should be called Great Times.
I have credits.
Yeah, okay.
I think it should be called Great Times too.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah,
but he's a
we
big
take
fan.
it up a notch.
He's a big fan of Jimmy Walker in that TV show when they were living in the hood. So that's where it's named
you know
after.
something?
Is that
just
what it's not
give
named
him
after?
a real intro, you piece of
I
shit.
just said he's got a podcast on the network, and then you said you were going to Dynamite Kid in. Go ahead.
Oh, God. Okay, this guy literally is not only... I got to tell you, when I bring some guys on the road with me, you know, I don't always watch them. That would be you. But there are other times where I sit back and I become like a comedy fan again. And I worked with this gentleman recently in Tampa, and there's something that's happened, I think, the last year or two, where he's just gone on another level, and I think his stand-up's fucking awesome. But on top of that, he's like the greatest guy in the world, and we're going to play this for him while we intro. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Good Times podcast, he's a great stand-up. He's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's an incredible stand-up, a great comic, a better human being, the nicest man from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Steve Simeone!
Yeah, there it is.
Hey,
What's up, Simone? How are you?
dude, I just feel bad that I didn't make it to the studio for this. I just want to hang out with you guys.
I know.
This is awesome. Thanks for getting me in the mix. Just hang out and have some laughs in person.
Well,
By the way, Simone's probably doing like a toy drive somewhere today. I mean, this guy's always doing something for the kids. He's donating blood. He's doing something.
you do so much work with the Children's Hospital Los Angeles. I'm a father of two, and I feel guilty. I'm like, oh, maybe I should hang with my kids today.
Yeah.
But like Simone is literally going to the hospital, getting them Chuck E. Cheese parties, doing like toy drives, and these kids are getting like, not just like, they're not getting like a teddy bear. They're getting like real, like flying drones and stuff. Simone, honestly, like, you're unbelievable. How did let's just start talking about the Children's Hospital. How did you get started with the great work at Children's Hospital?
I just saw people that needed help, and nobody was really helping, so I just did whatever I could do. And it's amazing how other people come through. I don't really do anything, man. I just let people know there are kids out there that need help, and it's amazing how the world just comes out to help. I mean,
but you spearhead everything. You're doing blood drives. You're doing toy drives. I mean,
look, I don't know. Like, I'll give all the credit in the world to another comic and pro wrestling fan, this guy named Johnny LaCosta, who it was a few years ago when I heard about a little kid. Actually, it was 2 years ago at WrestleMania. I saw there was a little kid in my older brother's neighborhood that was a wrestling fan that had a rare disease. And I came back from WrestleMania and I realized I just didn't have enough stuff to send the kid. You know, like I was just looking at the box of things I wanted to, like a care package to just make this kid's the struggle he was going through a little more enjoyable,
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what, it's not enough. So I turned to social media. It was the first, because I don't really like I think sometimes the charity work and stuff should be more private. But
Right.
You know what? But it's also like, if you don't let people know kids out there need help, nobody can or will help.
Well, yeah,
I
yeah.
went to social media, and I said, look, there's a little, hey, I know I'm through all the people I met through the late, great Rowdy Piper. It was like, I know I had some wrestling people in my social media network, and I said, hey, there's a very sick little boy that's a huge wrestling fan. I want to send him a care package. And it was amazing how everybody stepped up to help. And there was a guy that listens to my podcast, took his kids to Toys R Us, and they cleaned out the wrestling section. Guys like Steven Glickman from the Comedy Store was the guy. I have a buddy that works for the WWE. And then Johnny LaCosta was like, I can get you this, this, and this. And he was like, hey, I also do some volunteer work down at Children's Hospital. And that's where it started.
Wow.
And we went down there to see a blood drive because they desperately need blood. Mm-hmm. So if you're in the Los Angeles area, I just want to give you their phone number.
Yeah.
If you can donate blood. Their number is 323-361-2441 for the blood donor center at Children's Hospital. And that was it. I met a great guy down at Children's Hospital that whose job is getting blood, named my buddy Raul. And that was it. We just started to do blood drives, and I started to become friends with some of the families down there, and just trying to help.
But you're such a nice guy, too, because I know that if Steve went to do one of these drives, he would just show up at Children's Hospital with a bunch of his DVDs. Hey, kids, who wants Champion? I mean, like, he would put no effort into going to Toys R Us. He would just pass out that shit and make those kids more miserable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I got to tell you, you could cheer him up, though.
That joke went nowhere. That
just
joke
like Sullivan
bombed.
and Son season 4.
Okay. Anywho,
By the way,
Simone,
let me just say,
what's Gary?
did Simone get a part?
Just break balls, and I love how I knew Gary for years before I knew he had a black belt in ball break. You're always just so nice to me. I was Gary Kavanaugh. Which Gary Kavanaugh are you talking about?
So we wanted. So we see. Here's what we're.
Can I
very
say this real quick
Yes.
before we get into the meat and potatoes of the whole show?
Go.
Do me a favor. You're listening to the Dojo right now. You are here every week at the Dojo with us. I could not stress this enough. Go to iTunes right now and download Remember This by Steve Simeone. It's $9.99. It's literally one of the funniest stand-up albums you'll hear, and it will make you reflect to all those good times, thus the podcast name. And he just hits a nerve. Nobody's doing what Simone is doing, where you go back in time and recollect about all those positive, great childhood memories. And I sit in the back and I watch him tell these stories, these personal stories that everybody can relate to. And you just see the audience all looking at each other or high-fiving each other. I haven't seen that type of response since my last special taping. But honestly, do me a favor. Download Remember This. You will thank me later. It's fucking awesome. Go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry to interrupt.
And if you download Happy Hour, that was your second one, there's a $25 mail-in rebate.
Gary, Jesus Christ! Now let's get to the crux of why we have Simone here.
By the way, I do love. I mean, there's obviously, we all grew up watching wrestling back. I think when it was so much better than it is now, right? So much better. But do you still? So Steve, for our audience who does not know, is a huge wrestling fan, and WrestleMania is this Sunday. Now, as a fan of wrestling, will you get it, or are you not as interested in it anymore as you once were?
I'm very disappointed with the current product, and the only reason I'm disappointed with the current product is because I love it so much. Does that make sense? Like, if I didn't care, I just wouldn't care. I'd be like, whatever, I outgrew it. But it's just not good. It was so much better when we were kids.
But it's because when you're a kid, you believe it, right? Because I'm 41, and I have a lot of friends that still love wrestling, And I'm like, but why wouldn't you just watch UFC where it's real and they do not like each other? Like when you're young, it's fun. It's a soap opera for kids. But then you get older, you're like, well, it's all fucking fake. Why are you still into this shit?
There is this believability when we're kids. You look good for 41. There is this believability.
Shut the fuck up.
By the way, Steve, it's hard to believe it's WrestleMania 32, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be in Dallas.
In Dallas. Stone Cold Steve Austin's coming back.
Right.
We don't know what he's going to do. But I will watch it. But this will be, I don't think I've really, okay, this is how bad wrestling's gotten, in my opinion. That the last time I really watched wrestling was at WrestleMania last year with Gabriel Iglesias.
In San Jose.
And then I was like, yeah, and then I got back into it briefly, and I'm like, it's just not, it's not being handled properly, in my opinion. The creative aspect of it. The reason why we thought it was real when we were kids wasn't just because we were kids, but because the way wrestling was sold was that the matches were important and you cared about good guys versus bad guys. And then we entered that postmodern era of the anti-hero where you weren't sure if a guy was good or bad. And there were two great wrestling personalities that were able to do that amazingly. You had The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. That Attitude Era, in my opinion, was the last great period of pro wrestling. But once you took away the fact that the matches didn't matter, and it was no longer a story of good versus evil, because what made a bad guy in the 80s was the fact that he would cheat to win.
Right.
He would cheat to win. Like if Roddy Piper went to his trunks with a foreign object and hit, and you know what I mean?
This is so
you're like, what? You're screaming at the referee like, turn around.
Yeah.
Right. I love that the ref was looking towards the audience and 80 people are telling him to turn around.
Crazy.
8,000 people are going, turn around. I haven't seen that bad acting since Gary Cannon, I think, right?
Wrestling's gotten so bad, TBS is buying it.
Okay.
Fuck you, Byrne. I didn't want to go that way, and then you just cheap shotted me, right? You just gave me a pile driver. But
you're saying it used to be, because guys were just bad. They were just bad, right? But they always had like Elizabeth. Wasn't she with
Macho Man?
She was with Macho Man.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is this beautiful woman with this bad guy? But like Hulkster never had like a chick with him, and so it was kind of cool to be bad.
By the way, it was so funny. I remember years and years ago when the Iron Sheik finally lost the belt to Hogan. This was years and years ago. And I remember Freddie Blassie was his manager. And I remember backstage, they're being interviewed by Mean Gene. And Freddie Blassie said the reason Hogan won is because that referee is his uncle. Remember the guy, the referee was Rich Hebner or something like that, right? And I got to tell you, as a kid, you're like, why the hell would his uncle ref a match between his nephew and the Iron Sheik? And it's believable. I mean, you're like, I can't believe that Freddie Blassie's the guy calling this out. You know what I mean? Like, I truly believe that he was the uncle.
The voice of reason is classic Freddie Blassie.
Yeah.
But here's what's interesting. Go ahead, Steve.
I think you made a great point as to what the difference was between the product then and the product now. You mentioned Mean Gene Okerlund. And to me, this is what I think of. When I was a little kid, Mean Gene Okerlund would be backstage, and he would interview the bad guy, and he would interview the good guy. At no point were those guys near each other. Good guys and bad guys. The only time they were close to each other was in the ring,
right?
Because you believe they wanted to kick each other's ass. Now you have pro wrestling where the guys are not. There's no more Mean Gene. There's no more buffer between the combatants. So you have guys standing in the ring holding microphones, just giving speeches and soliloquies, while the guy there, I'm going to kick your butt, and he's standing 3 feet away from the other guy. It's like,
I'm
no,
so angry right now.
I'm like, drop the mic and kick each other's ass.
Right. I'm so angry, but I'm going to stay here.
Drop the mic and kick each other's asses.
Right.
That's like the 8-year-old in you. Like, that's the 8-year-old rationalizing it all. So that's the problem now, is because I don't watch it like you two. Like, you watch it, Gary.
Yeah, not as much, but yeah, a little bit.
Simone, you watch it. I know, like, you went, like, with Gabriel Iglesias. Like, Gabriel Iglesias is super into it, and he's got his crew into it, and I'm just like, you guys, we're 40. What the fuck? Like, I don't
when
get.
it works,
To me, I don't mean to
Byrne.
be the devil's advocate, but what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like Batman versus Superman, I'll go see that shit. It's a movie. It's comic books.
Same thing.
It's not. It's a movie. I'm not like, I hope, I hope that I can't even name a wrestler these days. I have no idea. I couldn't name you one. I could care less.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, in my opinion, the best wrestling is on the indie circuit right now.
Oh, here we go. You're the hipster of wrestling now.
No.
Hello, Natasha.
They approach it with, look, I would go with Autistic Thunder to this thing called Pro Wrestling Guerrilla.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a complete suspension of disbelief. There's something that can happen. Like Roddy Piper once told me, like the greatest thing is like when a pro wrestler gets hit with a real shot and somebody's watching the match and they go, "That's not real." Oh wait, that was real. Wait, I think this guy's really mad.
Right.
And when you would get into it, like I think some of the stuff, because of the internet and access to information, what people love most is the real life drama behind the scenes. Like I will get lost for hours on YouTube and listen to like old Harley race shoot interviews or stories about King Haku being the toughest guy ever to walk the earth. Do you remember that guy? Haku?
Yeah.
Yeah. They said like he was once in a bar fight and like broke some guy's jaw off. He like reached into his mouth and broke his jaw off.
He did it like King Kong in that King Kong movie where he opened the T-Rex's mouth and split it open.
Yeah, that's where they got it from. Because he did it in real life to a bad guy in a bar. Like, they have to do something. Look, I get your point where you go, this is stupid, this is all fake. But there's something that can happen with pro wrestling, and it doesn't happen often anymore. But when it works, it's the coolest form of entertainment there is. When it works. It's because it's part movie, it's part rock concert, it's part athletic event. It's really, really cool. But I think they need to make it more about what happens in the ring and less about what's going on.
Well, look, I think because everything's a reality show now, they have that WWE like Divas on E, right?
Yeah.
So that's drama that fuels into the matches, I'm sure. I have no idea. I'm just guessing. Is that correct?
Well, it brought in a whole other demographic. Like, I think that started to bring like more women into it and stuff like that.
Or horny guys in their 40s watching Divas.
Years ago we had the fabulous Moolah that we beat off to.
Or Wendy Richter.
But I remember that. But it's interesting. So, by the way, because before we rush out of time, I really want to get to this because you were a big wrestling fan as a kid and just watched it and just knew everything inside and out like I did. And then you fast forward years later and here's this little kid from Philly that now lives in L.A. and you become really good friends with Roddy Piper. Like, how does that whole dynamic come together? And, obviously when he passed away, that had to be just, a huge void for you. I mean, like, how does that whole thing come together? And how does that, as a little kid who just was a Piper's, I remember I just met him one time and that was a bucket list item for me. I'm like,
and
wow.
He was a guy that you hated as a kid, but you still were like, there's something cool about him.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You never like truly hated Roddy Piper. You were still like, he's like a good bad guy.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Even as a kid, I picked up on that.
So it's crazy because here you are and you move, you come out to L.A. and how does the whole,
divine intervention.
Yeah. Well,
okay. First, I'll say this: Byrne makes a great point about wrestling for kids. That's who it's for. Do you know what I mean? But I think it could be the type of entertainment that's so fun you can enjoy it on different levels throughout your life. Like when you're 8, you're like, this is real. By the time I got to college, I'm like, this is hysterical.
Right.
So that's what you control. And so as a little kid, I remember one of the first phone calls. Because when you're a little boy, you just get on your bike and you leave your house and you go see your friends. And when you're 10 years old, you're not like, okay, do you want to meet outside in 3 minutes? No, you just go outside. My point being, I didn't get a lot of phone calls as a kid because you don't need a phone when you're 11. But I remember watching wrestling like on a Saturday morning. I'm like, Mom, I need to use the phone. She said, what's the matter? I'm like, I got to call Brian. And I remember call my buddy Brian Moss, and I'm like, are you watching this? Who's the Boston Piper guy? Somebody's going to have to stop him. He's like, I know. I think Hulk Hogan's just the guy that can do it. he got so emotional.
Do you believe this shit?
These were two guys. These were two little boys that clearly didn't care about girls.
Yeah, so great.
You bring the lotion next time.
So then I became a grown-up, and I'm like, oh, the reason why pro wrestling was so enjoyable for me as a kid was because of Roddy Piper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you're little, you just root for you want the good guy to beat up the bad guy.
Right.
But the good guy would almost be meaningless without the bad guy. So I remember going to the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. I guess it was about 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago, when WrestleMania was in LA, and all in one night, like Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, they all got, essentially my childhood, got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And Bret Ernst and myself went. And our tickets were so far away from the stage at the Gibson Amphitheater, which seats like 6,000 people. We were literally in the last row touching the ceiling.
Wow.
So anyway, I was so broken. I had enough money for one T-shirt, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to get Hogan. I'm going to get the Piper shirt. And Brett was like, no, I'm the old Hot Rod shirt. I can't believe they have it. I'm getting one too. And we bought Piper shirts. And then like 2-3 years later, I got a call from Eric Abrams down at the Hollywood Improv. And he was like, I'm putting together a show with Roddy Piper. Do you want to be a part of it? I was like, absolutely. We did a show together, and that night we just became buddies. Like, because I was at the time I was the only comic that had wrestling specific material. Like,
yeah.
And everybody's like, "Did you write that stuff for tonight?" I'm like, "No, this is what I do every night."
Did you write that Saturday Night Main Event stuff tonight?
Yeah. I'm like, no. I'm not that talented. I'm just
And what kind of show was Piper doing at the time, Steve? Like, what was he doing?
He was trying to figure it out, to be honest with you. He I think was going to like headline that show, but then decided to like MC that show.
Right.
And he was experimenting with different jokes and different approaches to comedy, and that's how we really became friends. Because his manager at the time, Noel, was like, Roddy was really impressed with your comedy, and you could tell like I was a nice guy, you know. And she was like, he wants to come see you perform comedy again. I was like, yeah. So then Roddy came to the Comedy Store, and everybody went nuts. And then after that night, he invited me up to his house, and he was like, do you want to help me put together an act?
Oh, man. How crazy is that? I mean, is like the 8-year-old in Philly in you just like, how did this happen? This is why I moved to Los Angeles.
And by the way, it's Rowdy Piper. It's not like Leaping Lanny Poffo invited you to his studio in Reseda.
Yeah, it's not Coco Beware. Not Hacksaw Jim. I mean, this is like a legit, true. Yeah, but Hacksaw was pretty awesome.
But this is Rowdy. Like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you think about that induction class. It's Hulk Hogan, Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, and Roddy Piper. I mean, if I thought back to my childhood, it's like those, and Andre the Giant would be the 5 guys I would think about out of the gates.
You're great. Yeah, and then here's the coolest thing. This is I lost a job over it. I was working for Court in Vegas back when he had the Playboy Comedy Tour. I was taking out flyers for the show.
Right.
And Court can't make it to Vegas this month. He's like, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? I'm like, yeah. It's the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame induction. But he's laughing. He was like, no, why? Why can't you make it? And I'm like, because I'm really going to see pro wrestlers get inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Into their own Hall of Fame.
Which sealed the deal is that Ric Flair is the one that introduced Piper, and Sylvester Stallone is the one that introduced Hogan.
Oh, wow.
Like the greatest night ever.
So then how does it work then, Steve?
Awesome.
So you go up to Piper's house, right?
Yep.
And then what happens from there? I mean, because that's just so. I mean, are you just driving up to the?
Surreal.
Yeah.
To be honest, like the whole time, because meeting somebody like Roddy Piper, the first time, it's kind of like meeting a comic book character, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. Like those guys, anybody that makes an impression upon, at least I think. It makes an impression upon you as a kid. They hold a special place in your heart and a special place in your in your psyche. They're more than human. And especially for me, the way I look at it is pro wrestling for me as a kid was kind of like comic books for a kid that didn't like to read. I didn't like to read, but I got the same sort of comic book. Like my younger brother would always read X-Men and Spider-Man. And I was like, I don't have time to read. I can't do it. But I'd watch my version of Good versus Evil every Saturday morning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was yours.
So when I met Piper, I'm like, he didn't seem like a real human being. Like, I was like, I can't believe this guy's real.
Yeah.
So then, in his house, and the truth was, and I wrote a joke about this, but like I'm hanging out with him, and I'm like, this is amazing, this is cool. The reason why he came up to me after he saw me perform at the Comedy Store, because I was doing a set about babysitting my niece at the time and having an invisible tea party, and I forgot that Piper was even in the audience, and then I was like, what are you doing? You're talking about drinking invisible tea, and the toughest guy ever is out in the crowd. But that's what made him like me. He's like, I have 3 daughters. I can tell you're a good guy. You know what? You want to come by my house and talk about maybe putting an act together. So now I'm hanging out with this guy who says he's got kids and he's a nice person. But my inner 11-year-old was still talking. My inner 11-year-old's like, I don't think you should trust him. Remember what he did to Jimmy Superfly?
Yeah, he's going to smash
The
coconut.
whole time, you're like, he is a bad guy. You know?
Right.
But he wasn't. He was the coolest dude ever and had the most amazing life experience that was just I mean, I just miss him so much because there's so much more he could have shared with us. Like, the guy lived literally 1,000 lives. So, like, I would sit at his feet and he'd just start telling me stories. He's like, well, I don't have anything interesting. There's the time I got high with the ninjas. And I'm like, wait, what? And then he had stories like that. He had stories about getting drunk with Andre the Giant. He had stories about getting into legit bar fights. Because back in the 70s and 80s, when he was coming up, professional wrestling was not family entertainment. Like, he worked for promoters that if you got beat up outside the ring, you lost your job. And he worked for promoters that would encourage professional wrestlers to start bar fights. And he was so hated, and people took it so seriously in his era, that he would have to pay, like, the cook at Denny's $20 not to spit in his food, and would have to go back in the kitchen and watch the guy make it.
Oh, wow.
Because people wanted to kill him. He was stabbed 3 times. He had a special jacket made, so in case he got stabbed again, and places where he could hide a gun. And it was a whole different era. And I didn't realize that, like, guys from his era were the UFC stars of their time.
Yeah.
Like, that was probably the biggest thing I learned from Piper. Like, because when I was little, I thought it was 100% real. And somewhere as an adult, I came to the belief that it was 100% fake. Like, 100% stuntman fake.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I'm of the opinion, like, well, there's a gray line in there. Like, especially for Roddy's generation. Like, he was legitimately trained by this guy named Judo Dean LaBelle, who's a martial arts legend, who was the guy that, taught Bruce Lee how to grapple. The guy's only issued, like, 21 black belts. One was to Bruce Lee, another one was to Chuck Norris, and another one was to Roddy Piper, you know?
Oh,
like, the guy is considered the grandfather of MMA. And I really do.
And I believe Jaleel White got one as well.
I think that's what they need to do to bring back. They need to bring some of these MMA fighters into pro wrestling and add that level of realism again. And I think little kids would lose their minds.
Well, I remember that you did a show literally, I think, a month or 2 before Roddy had passed at Meltdown, where it was like pizza and wrestling, right? Something like that?
Yeah, it was. This is how cool God is. The first night I ever met Roddy was captured on film, that show we did at the Improv back in like 2009 or something like that. And then the last night I got to see Roddy was back in the end of June, about a month before he passed. And that was all filmed too. It was the only live podcast I've ever done. So it was like, what if we threw a pizza party and hung out with Roddy Piper?
That's right, yeah.
And we did it in a comic book shop. It would be like the most fun day ever. And that's what it was.
Unbelievable that you got to share that experience and have that. And, Roddy has that moment in time, obviously, before he left us all. And, thank you so much for sharing all those. But I got to tell you, too, it's crazy because you watch, that Iron Sheik documentary.
Sure.
And there's a new Jake the Snake Roberts documentary that's coming out.
Yep.
And you watch The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, and you just realize, especially as a stand-up comic, we tour, we travel, we see the dark side of humanity, I think, at times, on Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. These guys live a much different life. I mean, it's incredible the lives they've lived, especially that Iron Sheik one. It is so depressing and heart-wrenching to see what's become of our heroes, who are these, like you said, these superhero villains that over time, I don't know, it just it really makes me appreciate what they gave us and what they gave our childhoods, especially because for those, what was it, Sundays, right, is when it was always on?
Saturday mornings?
I remember, was it Sunday?
When I was a kid, we had it Saturday morning.
It was after all the cartoons, right?
Yep.
Yes, after cartoons was pro wrestling, and then you had Georgia Championship Wrestling on TBS when we got cable, which came on around 5:30 or 6 on Saturdays. And then when the WWF really started to expand, you had Tuesday Night Titans, and then Raw came on. So there was a lot of wrestling programming on.
But even when you're talking about Roddy getting that special jacket so he couldn't get stabbed, I wonder what that does to a man's psyche, especially at that time when everybody was watching wrestling. It just seemed like it was a pop culture kind of phenomenon. WrestleMania, nothing else. We grew up with WrestleMania, but before WrestleMania, there wasn't a WrestleMania. There wasn't any of that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, these guys, Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper and Andre, they made wrestling what it is. And I can't imagine being the bad guy, going out in public, knowing that kids hate you. Did he ever address anything like that?
Yeah.
That's got to do something crazy to an adult's mind.
I think it was the third podcast I ever did. Ronnie came over to my apartment, and he just got
said, "I'm sorry."
Vulnerable. It was, dude. He made this great distinction about all the stuff we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, the guys that are pro wrestlers now, he was like, everybody understands essentially that they're playing a part.
Right.
He was like, Mick Foley could come out and be Mick Foley. He could be Cactus Jack. He could be Dude Love. And everybody knew that there was an entertainment value to it.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I was Roddy Piper 24/7. He was like, there was no distinction between how the people perceived me as a human being and perceived me as a wrestler. So people would start fights with him. They had to live that life. And just the toll it must have taken on him. I remember once he told me, I don't know how personal this should get, but he would have to beat people up and stuff like that. And he'd be out with his kids.
Jeez.
It was brutal.
Yeah, because as an entertainer, you're going into wrestling just thinking, I got to put food on the table. I got a family. And it's like, okay, well, you're going to be a good guy, and you happen to be a bad guy. It's like, okay, well, that's the gig. I'll be a bad guy. And you're going out and you're just making a check. You're probably having a beer with the good guy after the match, but you can't tell the general public that. And the public just thinks you're an asshole.
Right.
I mean, it's got to be crazy. And it's not just a town or a city or this. It's the world thinks you're a bad guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's awful.
I don't know. Got real sad here. But I mean,
that's one of the things that started. I will say this: Roddy and I used to do a podcast together. It was called the Rock Pod, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Because it was just another excuse to hang out and have laughs with one of my heroes. I remember once we did an episode with the legend Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who is hilarious and so funny and nice. But he told a heartbreaking story that back in the 80s, he was feuding with the Iron Sheik, right? Hacksaw was everything USA. Remember he'd come out,
yeah.
And he'd have 2x4 and a red, white, and blue bandana. Anyway, he got busted with in a car with
partying with the Sheik.
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, the Sheik had drugs and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, it was so embarrassing. It was the worst. Because we're supposed to be hating each other. Here we are. We got busted.
Meanwhile, they're doing an Eiffel Tower the night before in a Holiday Inn.
I'm like, oh, God, this is the worst. He's like, oh, no, it's even worse. He was like, I'm from a little small town in upstate New York. My dad's the chief of police. And I'm like, oh, don't tell me that. He was like, yeah, we get caught with drugs in the car, and that's so embarrassing. And I'm like, oh, no. And he was like, no, it gets worse. I got busted with the Iron Sheik the day before I was supposed to get the key to the city.
Oh, wow. God.
I'm like, oh, my God, no. He told that story on our podcast.
Jeez, oh, man. Well, those guys, I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's a job, but I think that they sacrifice so much more with their occupation, because the Iron Sheik, he addressed that in the documentary as well, and just how
he got fired, didn't he?
He got fired, and it kind of took the lid off of wrestling in terms of letting people know, hey, this is real. This is not real. It's fake. And then kids got to see it, and and drugs were involved, and you're not thinking, oh, my heroes don't do drugs, and
it's also interesting. Right. Steve, I saw a picture a couple days ago of Bobby the Brain Heenan, and it's sad to kind of see, what did he have, lung cancer?
I think it might have been jaw cancer. I don't know what he's fighting.
I saw a picture of him. It doesn't look like the same guy at all.
It's so sad. You know what I think's really sad? It was the demands. Like, Byrne, you make a good point. It was just guys just trying to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And, like, you have guys like Nikolai Volkov, who escaped communist Yugoslavia, defected because he hated communism. And then it's like, oh, okay, buddy. Like, he told the story when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I may be getting it wrong because I'm trying to remember back 10 years ago. But essentially, he, like, was an Olympic weightlifter, smuggled himself out of the country with, like, $11 in his pocket. And then it's like, you hate communism, but now you're going to pretend to be Russian.
You're the face of communism.
And have 20,000 people boo you for loving communism. It's like...
We always used to, when we would go to the matches, Steve, we would try to get as close to the ring as possible, and then we were always rooting for the bad guy. So our whole thing was like when the good guys would come around, they would be the guys slapping the hands like around the ring. Yeah. And I just remember so many times like they would come around, like I remember Hillbilly Jim high-fiving him, and he looked right at me, and I gave him the middle finger. I'm like, fuck you.
Jesus, Gary.
And they're thrown because they don't know how to handle that, right?
Yeah.
And then, when they introduce, like, Volkov or the Sheik, we're the ones standing for the national anthem.
You should put on your resume,
Hillbilly Jim.
I just remember, do you remember, obviously, Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo? Like,
I haven't heard those names since, like, 8th grade. Holy shit.
They came running around the ring, and obviously they're shaking hands because they're fighting the Sheik and Volkov. And, again, the second they're about to high-five me, I'm like, fuck you guys.
Brian Rotundo, that name, just the name, it sounds like every guy that was the first to finger a girl in 7th grade. Oh, you don't know about Brian Rotundo? Yeah, he fingered Stacy Kuchowski back by the dumpster. That's a great name. Brian Rotundo.
No, it's Mike Rotundo. Barry Windham and Mike
Rotundo. Oh, yeah, Mike, whatever the fuck. Yeah, I haven't heard those names forever.
Mike Rotundo's son's a pro wrestler now.
Oh, he is?
This guy, Bray Wyatt. Yeah.
Have you met any other wrestlers from that era, Steve, that were it was just amazing?
Yeah, I remember once, I would go out on Roddy and we would do stand-up shows. But the stand-ups were usually in conjunction with wrestling events. So I remember this one weekend in Milwaukee, we did stand-up comedy. But then he also had a wrestling engagement. So I had to ride with him, the wrestling promoter, and Road Warrior Animal in a car to a wrestling gig. And it was fun, because Road Warriors were my favorite tag team ever. And then when Animal found out that I was a comedian, he just wanted to make me laugh and tell me all these amazing stories.
Oh, wow.
But, it's so funny you say that. So George the Animal Steele, his real name was Jim Myers, I think. Was that true, Steve? Jim Myers?
Yeah, he's got a book out too. I still need to get that book.
So,
like a teacher.
He was a football coach at a school in Madison Heights, Michigan. And this is kind of, I remember when, I got the door open and exposing everything that was fake. But I remember somebody showed me a yearbook of Jim Myers with his football team, and he's standing there like normal. And you're like, wait a minute, where's the green tongue, and how can he be standing there contained if he's this crazy guy? And so I remember at the time we would call the school all the time and be like, can we talk to Jim Myers? And they'd be like, hold on a second, and they would never patch us through. So I think
wow.
So but he was this guy, this crazy wrestler,
yeah,
and yet a football coach on the side. You know what I mean? It was just, the door was exposed. And I remember it was almost a year ago that I got to meet Hogan and Jimmy Hart at the airport in Chicago, which was just, and they were both super nice. They were both great.
Yeah, you tweeted a picture.
Yeah. It was the greatest.
I remember being a kid, and there was a mall by us, and the first celebrity I ever met, like as a kid, as you're growing up, you're living your life. Yeah, you go to the Great Adventure, you meet Captain America, but the first actual celebrity I ever saw in my life was Tito Santana.
Sure.
Arriba. Oh my gosh. Arriba.
Yeah, and he had a signing there, and he shows up in the getup and everything, which I guess today would be considered racist. But there he was, and I was like, "That's
in pro wrestling is just astronomical."
Was there a line to meet him?
Oh, there was an enormous line, and it was like me and a bunch of other, 8-year-old, 7-year-old boys, waiting to meet him and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. They were both there, so it was pretty awesome. I got their autographs, and you take a picture, and this is back in the day when no phone.
Yeah.
You got to, I hope I got
the
it.
Photo developed. Yeah. I would have loved in the day to have met Paul Orndorff, I think, or like a Big John Studd, or you know what I mean.
Big John Studd.
Yeah,
that name. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. Big John Studd. That's awesome.
I remember this is no joke. This is no joke. So sometimes, Steve, we wouldn't get tickets for the event. We would go down and hang out at Joe Louis Arena, and we knew the doors where they would enter, and drive their cars into like the artist entrance area. So we would just go hang out, and we would just wait and try to get pictures. And I'll never forget Terry Funk, and who was his partner? Jimmy Jack Funk? Dory Funk. So they literally, this is no joke, they're pulling into the garage, the artist entrance, and Terry Funk has the Lone Ranger mask on. So it's like he didn't want to expose his eyes. Like he's literally wearing the Lone Ranger mask. And I just remember going to see, and we'd get pictures after, as they were coming out. And that's when you kind of realized too it was bullshit too, when like the bad guys would pose and be super cool. And you know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, okay, wait a minute, And I remember one time, this is kind of when I knew too, we were inside the wrestling match, and my brother took us, and he didn't want to go in. And when we came out, my brother said, "You're not going to believe this. I just saw the Iron Sheik smoking pot right around the corner." And I'm like, "You're full of shit." He's like, "I just saw him." And I'm like, "You're full. Stop. You are not telling me the truth." Like I didn't want to believe it that he was smoking weed. And then it turns out he was in a car with Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Well, Simeone, we cannot thank you enough, and we got to play. I mean, I got to play this for Simeone because he's just, all good things come to an end, I guess. And
Simeone, we were asking, what's a better song for Hogan coming out to the ring, Real American or Eye of the Tiger?
That's such a difficult choice, guys. I can't do that.
I said Eye of the Tiger.
I will say that Real American was written originally for Mike Rotundo and Barry Windham.
Oh, it was?
Yes. Hogan stole that because that's when they started enforcing copyright laws.
Did you see the Hogan sex tape?
No.
Oh, liar.
Yeah. Simeone, where can they find you?
AwesomeSteve.com. I want both you guys to come on Goodtimes too, because this is the best. Like, I'm in such a good mood now, thinking of those times when I was a kid, and that's what makes wrestling great. Is when it's just.
Well, we love you. Download Remember This. Simeone is a huge Van Halen fan, so we're playing some Van Halen to send him off. Thank you so much for calling in, Simeone, and listen to his podcast, Good Times, at All Things Comedy. Thank you, Simeone.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, thank you, buddy. Take care.
Love you,
bye, guys.
Where can I find you, Gary?
Canon Comedy _ Terry Funk.
By the way, this might be the longest podcast we've ever done.
It's been, we've had long ones. Yeah, it was good though.
But that was fun. It was fun
so
hearing
fun.
Mike Rotundo and all those great names. I haven't heard those names forever.
So much fun.
So awesome. We hope you enjoyed our wrestling episode with wrestling aficionado and huge fan Steve Simeone. Find us, All Things Comedy. Keep the reviews coming in, guys. We appreciate it.